that today in this post-church era, that most people have deemed it necessary just to go because when we were little, Mama said go. When we were little, you didn't have a choice, you had to go. When you graduated from high school, when you were 18 and you thought you were old enough to make your own decisions, and even though you were not paying any bills, you assumed that you had the authority to make that decision when you were going to church. And so since you were a couple of days past 18 and you're making your own money and you're able to live where you live, you no longer see it absolutely imperative to show up in the place of worship. And that's the reason why in most of our churches today we have so many empty seats, because there are so many who don't deem it necessary to go to church. The frightening piece is that for many of us, we decided that if our children have decided that they don't want to go, they don't have to go. Church is boring. It doesn't meet any need. We just leave them at home because they play sports on Sunday. If they don't play sports, they're involved in some other things, and so we just let them stay where they are. Somehow or another, we've forgotten that we are where we are as a result of what God has done for us in our past. Most of us have forgotten that we weren't always where we are now, didn't always have what we have now. Some of us remember quite well that things weren't always as good as they are. But for one reason or another, we decide that we can stay home today just because we can get our religion from the TV. We can listen to the preacher on the radio. Oh, that's right, we don't listen to radio. We are listening to the preacher via internet, live streaming. We are looking at the preacher on the television, and so we don't have to give any money to the TV minister. We don't have to send any support. But to those individuals, we can stay at home, relax, and just worship at home. Am I talking to anybody this morning? Just for a moment, I want you to entertain the idea that Paul is giving the final instructions and the benediction to a group of people who are referred to as the Gentiles. They were not always Hebrews. They were not always individuals who followed Yahweh. They were not always full-blood Jews. As a matter of fact, they were called the Gentile dogs. They were half-breeds. They were individuals who somehow were not Hebrews and who indeed did not follow God. But in the first century, after Jesus has come and introduced individuals to a new way of living, a new walk, a new attitude, all of a sudden there are individuals who have decided that they're going to follow this man of the way. They want to make sure that somehow, just in case there is this thing called God, that they touch all bases and somehow they can find their way into the eternal kingdom. Anybody hearing me this morning? There are a number of people who show up at church on any given Sunday. We show up because we want to make sure that just in case there is a God, we align ourselves with the church so that when it all happens and it's all over, we have at least ensured a space in the kingdom. We may not actually believe that there is a God, that there is someone who is greater than we are. We may not really live like we believe that God is that awesome or that powerful, but we'll show up just because we want to make sure in the event that there is someone greater than us, we want to make sure that there is an inroad for us to get back to him. Amen. All of the religions in the world are designed recognizing that there is an ultimate reality, somebody who's greater than we are, who exists, that somehow they have created something greater than us, pulled it all together so that somehow we have somebody that we can look to in the event that life goes on after this life.
Yeah.
Paul says, I've been trying over and over again to convince individuals that I am a true apostle. I am a follower of Christ Jesus, whose claims is that he is the Son of God. Individuals in the first century have had a difficult time understanding how he could be the Son of God if in fact God is holy, is loving, and is kind, and we've got all this stuff to contend with in life. Why is it good people suffer? Why do young babies have to die? Why is it hurricanes show up and kill people who are innocent? Why do people who love God have to go through storms? Why is it appears that the people who don't know God seem to live better than the people who lay claims to knowing God? And so they are wrestling with this issue. And Paul says, let me address the issue by suggesting to you that I've got some final instructions to help you before you leave. Just the other day, my wife and I were getting ready so that we could go up to the Poconos to relax for a few days. Every now and then, every one of you get away, and I watch you, and I listen to you expressing how good it was. And every time I seem to get a chance to get away, individuals decide that they're not coming to church because they see the pastor's not going to be there. I need to get away just like you need to get away. Right. Paul says, let me share something with you. I need you to know that while many individuals in the first century don't think a whole lot of Paul, don't think about his capabilities or think much of his capabilities, he wants them to know that what you need to do is to pay honor to whom honor is due. If Paul is to labor among the folk, if he is to work among them to prepare them for the return of Christ, then you at least ought to give honor to the person who is preparing you to travel when he comes. My wife and I spent a couple of days, maybe she just spent one, in preparation to go on the trip, because you know how some people are. They wait till the last minute to pack their bags. I'm not calling any names. And so in preparation to leave, you're trying to help this person get ready to pack up all their bags, and that person has waited till the last minute, and churchgoers are just that way. Many of them should have been packing and being prepared for the return of Christ, but many of them are waiting until the last minute. And so while I'm all packed up and ready on that last day, I got my stuff in my bag, and then I'm sitting on the side of the bed, and I'm looking and I'm thinking, girl, if you don't come on and Paul has labored before the people, and he's watched them, and he's talked to them. He's taught them how to live. He's taught them how to appreciate each other. And he says, you ought to watch how you treat the preacher in the text. Now, in the life of the church, we can have a tendency to look, and we can look at the preacher and we think, okay, everything's well, all is good, his health appears to be good, his mind is halfway decent on some Sundays. I saw that, Kurt. And then on other days, it looks like he is absolutely lost it, and you are assessing whether or not you can do better than he can do. Come on, I'm a realist. Next year, I will have been preaching for 40 years of my life. 40 years of my life, I've been preaching and laboring before people. For the last 36 years of my life, I've been pastoring, leading, and preparing sheep to prepare for the coming of the shepherd. I've labored here in this particular part of the vineyard for the last 25 years in preparation so that my task is fulfilled in preparing you to get ready for the return of Christ. My suggestion to you this morning, I submit to you before you go. Amen. Make sure that you treat the preacher the way God has designed for you to treat the preacher. I'm not a TV evangelist. I don't have 4 or 5 little jets parked over in the hangar. I don't have 10 or 15 Bentleys or Maseratis. Give honor to the preacher. I'm not asking anybody to bow down before me. I'm not asking anybody to worship me. I'm just asking individuals to make sure that you give honor to whom those that deserve honor. And not only does he give final instructions so that you know how to preach the persons that are laboring before you to get you ready for the coming of the King, but he says also be watchful and mindful of the individuals that are around you. Don't mistreat each other. That's what he warns these individuals in the first century. Whatever you do, don't backbite each other, malign each other's character. Don't try to destroy each other. Try to build each other up so that somehow there is some semblance of love. You may not agree, but don't become disagreeable. Amen. Can we just talk this morning? There's been enough preaching to preach the hell out of people, but the reality of it is that we've forgotten how it is we ought to live. So he says, look, I know somebody gets on your last nerve. I know you disagree with him. He said, but whatever you do, don't repay evil for evil. Amen. We sit around in our churches and we want to have a holy time. We want the Holy Spirit to manifest his presence. And then we show up on Sunday and we sit there as though we are corpses. Jesus didn't call them corpses. He said you look like whitewashed sepulchres. And all that is in Hebrew is to suggest that you've been painted, you look good, that looks like their life should be in you, but you are sepulchre. That's the abode of the dead. Churches have become whitewashed sepulchres. We spent much money in creating places where we can worship. We created avenues where we can come in to worship, but anything happens inside of the place of worship except worship. And so my final instruction to all of us is that we are to treat each other the way we want to be treated. We are to love each other, respect each other, and don't do evil or repay evil for evil to each other. And he gives all this to the people before he exits. If these are the final instructions and the benediction, here's what he's really saying. Live lovingly before each other. Embrace each other. Support each other and lift each other up. And do more so as you see the final days approaching. And as the final days are approaching, when you've done this to love each other and to lift each other up, then I will give you the benedictus. I will give you the blessings that you should receive. And so if you've shown up this morning to worship God, and you've learned how to love each other, respect each other, lift each other up, then I'm going to give you the blessings that you deserve. And those are the final words before you go. Imagine just for a moment, before Moses was to walk off the scene, he met up with God. We don't have his final destination, the place where he's buried. We just know that he disappeared somehow. There are prophets who walked off with God when it was all over. But before you go, spend time with God in preparation for spending eternity with him. Paul and Silas spent time in a Philippian jail in preparation for the final outcome. I suggest to you that before you go, prepare to meet your Maker. Jesus on that Good Friday, as we call it, found himself being crucified on behalf of humanity, but on Sunday morning, he rose again, that he might declare that he has all power on heaven and earth. Before you go this morning, before you leave this place of worship, recognize that God indeed has visited you, has given you strength to get through whatever it is you're facing. Before you go, know this much, that God loves you enough so that you never have to walk alone. God is going with you before you go. I submit you this day that the God that we serve is a God who's so awesome. And he never allows us to walk alone. Before you go, celebrate what God has done.